Happy Monday, back from spring break. Hi. Thank you so much for being here. This is a really big deal for us, and I realize it being the day after spring break, it being 35 degrees and whatever it's doing out there, I'm so grateful that you're here. The Kennedy School and the IOP, we are all so grateful that you are here. We've got two very special guests today. One, I know you wake up to every morning on CNN at 7 a.m., Sara Sidner, who is an award-winning journalist. She hosts the morning show. What is it called, CNN This Morning? Or Hey, it's CNN, or Good Morning, CNN. Every single morning, she is one of the best reporters out there, and whether she's in Egypt or the Strait of Hormuz or LaGuardia Airport or she's here tonight, she literally took the train from New York and is taking the train back tonight. So thank you for being here, Sara. And Mark Kassen, who is an award-winning filmmaker, Golden Globe nominee, writer, actor, director. He's also the co-founder of a platform called ASP, A Starting Point, that he founded with the actor Chris Evans. I suggest you all go to it online. It's a really interesting place where people from different opposing views of policy and politics come together for an impact, not just to make news, but to actually talk about things and discuss. You're gonna watch a really great movie after this, but you're gonna hear all about how it's made. Mark plays, I'm not gonna give it away, but a United States Senator, and it's a thriller, so get fucking excited for that. So here we are. Thank you for coming. Mark and Sara, come on up.
He watches me so much he doesn't know the name of the show, so I would just like to put that out there. Doesn't matter. It's fine. We're here to celebrate Mark, this Mark. Thank you guys for being here on this cold and very Bostonian day. Mark directed and starred in this movie, and so I just want to start with saying how. How did you do that?
Well, with a lot of other people helping and doing a lot of other things. I mean, I've been making things for a long time, and I'm fortunate enough to have a series of collaborators that you start from punching holes in the script to punching holes in your ideas of how something should look to basically punching holes in your best idea until your best idea becomes a better idea. And then you continue to use those people to iterate until you then get on set and see, oh, should we show that?
Yeah. So I just wanted to quickly start with that because you'll see him, but he's also directing himself somehow. It's kind of magic. So we're gonna play a preview clip first, and our wonderful audio folks are gonna hit it.
Hello, Ellen. How are you?
Good, thanks. Camera looks great.
Thank you very much.
Can you hear okay?
I can hear you fine, thank you.
Is everything okay?
Everything's fine.
And we are going live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello?
Hello, Senator. I'm afraid you're going to have to put a stop to work for the next 90 minutes.
Okay. What are we doing for the next 90 minutes?
I'm giving you the chance to cleanse the blood from your hands.
Ready? Freddie!
I'm not without sympathy. The social media, online news outlets, they're not healthy. That thing that became a post is now turned into a fact, and facts are really hard to run from, Senator. You could probably use a close friend right now.
Lisa, get off! Somebody's trying to hold me hostage.
Nobody's holding you hostage. You're the one that built this cage, now go fly in it.
Senator, with the flood of information coming out, this could tank his political career.
There's one thing I hope that you'll figure out today, is that you created all of this.
Why can't you just tell me what you actually want?
And when you just stop trying to fix things and start being honest.
Senator.
Thank you for having me, Monica. I do plan on taking this opportunity to address the many fabrications that have been circled about me today.
Because it certainly stressed me out. When I first thought I called you right after the movie and I said, I'm feeling very stressed and scared, so thanks for that, but it's very well done. It's entertaining, but did you intend to have a message? What are you trying to say with this film?
Yeah, I mean, as Mark said, I've done this thing called Starting Point for the last, I guess it's been up for 5 years. We worked on it for 7. And I have, I'm sure like you, have sort of had this interesting vantage point on elected officials. And I've gotten to interview a handful of people from when they got elected to the next time they went to get reelected. And you watch the best of intentions, let's just say, that folks have in representing their constituents, and then the characters that they become to stay elected. And the Faustian bargains that we make as we have to find a way to get our message out to the message that resonates. So something works, right? And I found that fascinating. And in the same time, the relationship with the media. I've always liked media as a character in movies. I've liked it in most of my things. And I always enjoyed the films of the 70s, especially, The Conversation, 3 Days of the Condor. Those films came at a time when we were very cynical about what we were being told by our government, what we believed was true, what we thought was really supposed to support us versus what was controlling us. And I think we're in a similar time now. And technology and media, which now are the same thing, which I'm sure you're all aware since you're in school and live on your phones and go to Harvard, so you're probably pretty smart. I think now more than ever that manifests in a few different ways. So the combination of those things, I really wanted to kind of speak to in a way that would be fun. And so we made a thriller about it.
So you do, in many ways, I mean, it's an indictment in some ways of the way the system works, right? The media versus politics and how those things kind of bang into each other, but also form one another. Give us some sense. Were you trying to skewer the media, or were you trying to say, hey, this is what's happening right now? This is because one of the things, it's in the trailer, he says, posts become facts. And we've all seen memes and different things come into our feeds, and I get called by family members, is this real? All the time.
Right. Well, before I answer that, I guess what I'll say is what I've noticed. And I've noticed this, I'm not famous, but I'm a public person. So, and I'm known enough, I like to say that I can cause a problem, but I don't have enough notoriety that I can solve it or even address it. No one cares at that point. So I've seen myself, in terms of the media, how the new, and I don't mean to be a blight, I don't know how you guys do it, but a lot of the development process around sourcing is Twitter feeds. People look to comments, and you now actually see people saying, Jiho947 now is thinking, so the people on Twitter are saying, who are those people? That's actually something that's a source now. And so therefore, the media can now create a narrative out of a piece of technology that's designed to keep you on the technology. So it's kind of, we're really eating the tail at that point, right? So then to answer your question, yeah, kind of. I mean, look, I hope you all stay for the movie. My hope is that you get to the end, and I don't want to give too much away because there's a bunch of surprises along the way. It's a little bit of a he who hath no sin. We all have a part in it, including the audience. You can blame the media, and that's not a new thing, right? But we make choices in what we pay attention to. The bigger problem now is the question of how much of those choices are we making, and how much is someone controlling the choices, which then I might say causes more responsibility on the folks who are digesting it, which is us.
We had conversations before this about why certain stories come to the top of the day, where most people will watch the first 10, 15 minutes and then go about their day, and they're chosen for a reason. But now we have algorithms that are also choosing. And so I guess the question is it the algorithm that's choosing for us, or are we fueling the algorithm so that it chooses the same things that we keep spending so much time on? It's like, how much responsibility is it of the media's, and how much responsibility is it of ours? And I'm a user of social media myself.
Sure. Look, to be fair, right, we're all busy, and life is challenging, and it requires a lot to learn, pay your rent, do what you got to do. And so it's reasonable for folks to say, well, I need the easiest way to get the most amount of information the fastest, And when Tunisia was toppled because of Twitter, that's not a bad thing, you know what I mean? I grew up in a small town. I used to have to get a ride to the center of that town to go to Video King and talk to the manager to get to the manager's shelf for that small group of movies that I wanted to see that didn't exist anywhere else. Because of the internet and social media, I can get all of those niche things on a massive scale. That's amazing. Anybody can have a voice who isn't feel heard. The problem is now that the technology itself has taken over, it's designed to keep you there. And you stay there by getting something that keeps you engaged, by getting a dopamine hit. And that dopamine hit doesn't mean it makes you happy, it means you stay alert. And so I think that, yeah, it's designed, in a cynical way, and I'm not making this up, right? There's these many things. I mean, we're at a policy school here, right? Is that correct? I mean, so I'm just curious, how many of you all know about Section 230? So Section 230 is legislation that basically alleviated responsibility from the technology companies. Now, by the way, this is the wonkiest way to get into a political thriller, but it alleviated the technology companies' responsibility from the content that was published, because they're just a billboard, right? They're not publishing anything. But now that they are the news, it's a little tricky, And so I would say, yeah, they have a responsibility, but so do we.
Do any of you, how many of you are on social media? Just raise your hand. If you look at it, post on it, right, all of us. You almost can't help it. And it goes across generations and races and socioeconomic. Just about everybody has access to it. So you have a TV station in your hand. That's basically what you have. Back when, oh my gosh, I'm gonna age myself, but we didn't have social media when I grew up, and when I started in this business, at the news business, we didn't have social media. That came later. We started using it probably 2007 heavily, 2008. The Arab Spring was one of the big reasons why Twitter really blew up. I was abroad at that time, and we were seeing what was going on by that, not by what we were watching.
And it was helpful, probably.
And it was very helpful. Yeah. It was a tool. But how much of it is, you guys are also the news? Do you think of yourselves that way? Because what you put online, if you are somewhere and something is going on, we take in. We take it in and we look at it and say, okay, can we confirm this is from Harvard? Okay, something's going on in the campus. Okay, a student is saying there's this or that. I won't say something horrible because we all know what happens sometimes on campuses and we're not going there, but we are learning from you all as well. So there's this weird give and take, and I'm wondering how that's affected politics, policy, and politicians as well.
Look, along those lines, there is a way to garner an audience. Right, there's, doing it for clicks. Like, there's a way to do it. And whatever you want to use that for, you can, whether it's to sell knitting because you live in Tecumseh, or whether it's to sell pictures of your feet or some other body part, or, whether it's to sell a message. And the mistake often becomes you think that you have it, that you are running it and that it's working until it runs away on you. And I think, everyone kind of wants, not everyone, but lots of people want attention for things, and they don't understand what the cost of that is until they can no longer control it.
You have talked to a lot of politicians from the very start of their careers, and then as they went on for re-election and re-elected, which often happens, the incumbent almost always wins, with some exceptions, but the majority of them win. What have you witnessed? What have you witnessed happens to them? Is it a consequence of them trying to get reelected, and so they have to raise money, and so they have to be very much, they have to go further and further to the extreme to get that money, or something else?
Look, first I'll say, when we would start, and I'm not you. I'm not a journalist, right? I'm not held to that bar.
You have the connection.
I've gotten to have these conversations, so we create information. We're information. We ask people to define things. And for the first couple of years, every person we talked to at the end, we would ask them, what was the moment that that inspired them to get into politics, and what was their most proud moment? We asked everyone. And almost everybody, especially ex-mayors, had something that happened to them locally. A child was hurt in a pool, and there wasn't a regulation that stopped that pool filter from doing something, you know. I think that was, anyway, like some version of something that made them mad, or they felt a sense of injustice. And then that grew into them getting to Congress. And I say that was most of the time. And they represented these constituents, these people. And those people may believe differently than I do, but in the beginning, there's an earnest pursuit of that, right? Then, once you get there, it takes a lot to stay there. You know, I was shocked when we would schedule these interviews, and I mean, you must experience this all the time. You know, they fly in on Tuesday, and they fly out by Friday. And every night, there's something, and usually at least one, if not the other three of those nights, are fundraisers to stay elected. Right? So the active thing of getting, I mean, like, you know, I'm so happy to be here. It's really exciting. I'll do, you know, 10 of these, you know, like I'm basically like knocking on doors, selling stuff so someone will watch my movie, and you'll tell somebody else to watch, please tell someone to watch my movie, by the way. And, you know, and I'm happy and I'm fortunate to do it, but that will end quickly, you know, hopefully not for a little while, or people will just start watching it and I'll just kick back and watch, but it will end. It never ends for them. And then they got to do all of this work that we ask them to do. So that seems kind of amazing right there, right? So then you get to then getting reelected, and you look at what's worked and what hasn't. And then what I think happens is the thinning down of, as I was saying before, of what's the thing that I can get across, or that I can brag about, or that I can hone in on. And now to compete within that algorithmic state, what's the thing that's going to get me the clicks? And so the kind of the trifecta of those three things creates this kind of adroit hyperbolic speech that they're encouraged to have, which then I think kind of like dissipates the underlying strength of what they stood for.
There is...
And that's giving the most amount of credit. Some people just become, you know, twisted.
Yeah.
But I'd say more than not. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but more than not, I think
trying to survive.
They're trying to survive, to do the thing that they think they can do, you know, and information is complicated and it's hard to get out there, and you have a team around you and they're telling you these things and they're giving you data and research, and so they're doing this thing. So I think oftentimes, to answer your question more specifically, people become a shell of the thing, or a copy or representative of the thing that they started out as.
I want to talk about compromise, because there's a theme that runs throughout the film about compromises that politicians make, but we all make compromise. And at some point in politics, it was somewhere, it seemed, around the Tea Party becoming quite, not what happened here back in the day.
We are in Boston.
Sorry, we're in Boston. But I think it was around that era where compromise became a very bad word. It was like, no compromise, you know, go be pure, get the thing done that we want you to get done. What does that do when you're kind of looking at it from a lens, like trying to explain it?
Well, I don't want to give anything away too much about the film, but there's a moment in the film that I was really proud of when somebody who used to be the comms director for the Foreign Affairs Committee saw it. And I wondered if it would be looked at cynically, because it talks about, and I mean, as you're talking about, there's a bill that's going on, and there's a thriller. This is a thriller, and you kind of get the gist of what's happening. But it takes place on the eve of the passing of a bill that has to do with a water treatment issue. And some reporter calls my character out on another bill that there may have been some horse trading, and my character is kind of at the end of his rope, so he blurts out, you know, uncensored honesty about what he did to make that compromise. And I wondered if that would be seen by elected officials or these people as a dig. And the person felt the exact opposite, which was, I was so happy to show that someone was actually trying to do something and said the quiet part out loud, you know? And I think there's a lot of that, you know? I mean, look, that's what I am saying, but at the same time, you know, without giving away the thing in the movie, sometimes you compromise something because it's convenient to not pay attention to the information. And you'd rather not acknowledge the hard part of the information that's hard to describe, that's hard to acknowledge, it's hard to deal with, to do the shiny part. And I think that happens a lot. And that's when people get stepped over or on.
what do you think the message is? Are you trying to send a message, or I feel like you, just because of your background, that there is some messaging, and it's not cut and dry. It's not like punch you in the face. It's complicated.
Yeah, I tend to like movies that don't tell you what to think, but asks you to. And so, again, the greatest compliment I could get, and someone come out of the film, is seeing a couple, having empathy a little bit for at least most of the people that are involved in this kind of Faustian bargain and this kind of thing. And then what I would hope is that people could say, what's wrong with the system that has created this ineffective reward mechanism, both in information and in politics?
Are we what's wrong with the system? And when I say we, I mean the media in general.
I mean, look, to be fair, when Fox and MSNBC first, were like, well, if you want this, you go here. If you want that, you go there. You could change the channel. This is like a new, and you were making that choice. And to your point now, the algorithms now are making, so if they think you've made that choice, you get a more and more narrow viewpoint. And I would say, as a result, what's kind of fascinating, and this would include your network, now the pundits who are there to kind of give another viewpoint, you are watching them become a little more adroitly hyperbolic to get their thing in, because it works too, and it's good for their career. So I would say in that sense, yeah. You know what I mean? But back to your point before, we're the problem because you wouldn't do it if we didn't want it. There's a movie which probably none of you have seen, called Big Night, with Stanley Tucci, and have you seen it? I love it. Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub, they play brothers who have this Italian restaurant in Brooklyn. It's this beautiful restaurant. If you like food, it's before Top Chef and all these things. It's like just amazing food porn. And like they make these amazing meals, and Tony Shalhoub's this purist artist, and the restaurant is dying. It's not working, and his brother wants to try having specials and all of these things. And Stanley Tucci was trying to keep it alive. And Tony Shalhoub blows up eventually and goes, they should come for the food. And Stanley Tucci goes, yeah, but they don't. And so that's kind of it, right? So at the end of the day, we have to shit on ourselves. The only thing I would say is this technology, which is now also media, is gilding the lily. They are now competing unfairly, and we now are playing into their mechanism, because once we get in, it'll help, the reward mechanism helps propel us.
And there are many, many, many bots. I mean, people, you all know this, right? That there are so many automated messaging going on. You don't even realize it, but it's to keep you animated, right? And usually it's negative. Every war that I've ever covered, that while we were using this technology, I cannot tell you how much negativity coming out, and it could be anything. I mean, I hope you die. It is literally so that you respond. And so I kind of have done little experiments that the company doesn't love, but where I respond to see what the response is going to be, and to see also, is this possibly a real person? And you really can't tell. Yeah. You really can't tell. Then you go to look on their Twitter feed or on their, I've gotten off that, but on their Instagram feed or TikTok, and you try to figure out, is this real? And it's like, oh, they have 0 followers and they've posted 6 times. Probably a bot, right? I mean, it just, no human being has that few friends that are, what I mean? I mean, if they do, God bless them, but do you know what I mean? I mean,
yeah, but you also can sometimes see like a repeated language with other things kicked around it. I mean, because I get them too.
They're bot farms, right?
Yeah, but they also, but this is the point of the, like, it's working because they go to the lowest common denominator, right? So they go for a racial thing. Yeah. They go for an appearance thing. They go for something that people can glob onto because that's what works. Because like the shittiest thing works, And then sadly, back to the media, the shittiest thing will work because it will show up on the Today Show. Like that's what's crazy to me. Like real reporters will use it as a development tool.
I mean, I've seen it, and I think I have to be honest. I think I've done it. When Twitter first became really big, on some shows, they would say, here's a comment from so-and-so. I think Smirkanish, although he's a political show, so he's getting feedback from people in real time and then putting up, this is what this person thinks about X, Y, Z. And if they're interesting ideas, then he'll put them on the show. It's not garbage. It's somebody who has thought through something and said, well, here's how I think about it, which I find an interesting use of it. That can be quite helpful because you are having conversations with real people. Yeah. And one of the things with the media is the conversations with real people. Yeah. It's problematic, right? Because when you're talking to politicians all the time, right? I mean, the representatives are going to be on. You want them on. You want to hear what they have to say. You don't have necessarily the same kind of access that we do. But fewer and fewer, in my mind, real people who are living their daily lives, dealing with their daily problems are on. And so you get this skewed idea of what the problems are. And I think politicians also get a skewed idea of what the problems are if they're engaging just in doing media, Washington, talking to their small groups there, and then going home to fundraise.
Well, let me ask you, because I've heard you say, outside of here, things along the lines of what it takes. Well, I'll ask you this way. Do you consider your job the voice of the people that don't have the access to those people?
I've always considered it that way, but I don't always get it right. I mean, like, I am now no longer in the field as much. I used to be in the field, and that was my thing that I would do. And they knew that if I went into the field, and that's going into neighborhoods and different places around the country and world where you are having one-on-one conversations with other human beings going through life who are dealing with hard things. And that is my favorite part of the job. It is the only thing that keeps sort of the fire in me because I want their voices to be heard. And I have an opinion, just so you know. Like, let's not pretend that reporters don't have opinions. I think it's bullshit for someone to go, I was completely sorry, kicking you. I don't have any feelings. Of course you have feelings, but you are trained and taught to keep them to your damn self and let someone else talk. What do they think? And you do get a lot of different people in your orbit that way, where you hear things that you may not have thought of in your own life because you haven't experienced it. And those are the most beautiful moments to me, even when they're really hard, because it expands how I see the world. But I'm now on the anchor desk. So that's, for me, woe is me, it's very hard because I feel cut off from regular people. And we try to get people on, and we use all kinds of things like Zoom and to try and get more voices. For example, the TSA, right? The TSA workers, you're gonna hear from the TSA administrators, you're gonna hear from the politicians, they're both blaming each other, everybody's fighting. What about the workers that are going to work every day? They have no pay. This keeps happening to them. I mean, it's crazy, right? What's happening to them? What is their life actually like? And how are they being able to pay attention to what they're doing when they can't afford their gas, right?
So I would say, and in the movie, the other part of that is the elected officials are in the same position, which means you now are at a place in your career where you've earned a level of success and respectability that you're actually cut off from the roots of the thing that is part of the strength of your job and your skill set. Same thing with elected officials, right? And so, this guy in the movie, you're at a certain point now where he's on the verge of passing this thing that's for the people, but yet he doesn't talk to any of the people. And eventually, one of those people finds a way in and fucks with him.
Shows up in his life.
Shows up in his life and fucks with him. Back to not knowing what's real, and this is a thing throughout the movie of trying to know what is real and what's not, because of all the technology, because of the way the life is structured, it's impossible to know for a long time what to take seriously. And I think that, for me, is a little bit of a metaphor for all of us.
Yeah, I found that to be the scariest part because it's the truest thing that we are all dealing with. What we are reading, it feels, how many of you really get deep feelings when you read something on your social media feed? Anybody? Where you have a visceral response to, or you get annoyed, or you laugh, or you, right. It's a natural response to something you're reading, and every single time I have to go, is this true? And then I'm on my computer okay, wait, is this, did this person really say this? Was this a hot mic moment, or was this freaking AI? Because now you're contending now with something that is can be completely fabricated, not just taken out of context. So in this case, you didn't get that much into the sort of the AI world, but you have the same feeling.
Right.
What's real and what's not. And I've heard people say we're living in a post-truth world, which I think is complete crap. But are we?
I mean, no, I don't think so. I mean,
Truth
again,
is still truth.
Truth is still truth. You know, I mean, I think, look, there are things that are hard to define, you know, for sure. But and confirmation bias has always been an issue, and it is now on a larger scale. But I don't think we're living in a post-truth world. I think that, you know, again, the technology is making it easier for us to be lazy, and we don't mind it, you know. I mean, the whole point of the clip is like this person where this stuff becomes inundated in them, and you suddenly, you know, he's not sure what to believe until he's pressed to a certain point.
And the audience is not sure what to believe, but they are being fed the most negative thing that's going on, and more and more things keep happening, and you don't know if they're true or they're not true. Let's go to clip number 1, and then I'll have you explain what's going on.
Come on, Tony, you got me. Let me get back to work, okay? I'm busy.
I don't know any Tony, and I'm afraid you're gonna have to put a stop to all work, at least for the next 90 minutes.
Okay. What are we doing for the next 90 minutes?
I'm giving you the chance to cleanse some of the blood from your hands.
Okay, fun's over, buddy.
This is just beginning, I'm afraid. I can see you in your blue shirt and your gray pants. Hold up a number. 3, 2.
I don't know what you're trying to do here, but nothing good's gonna come from this stupid little prank.
His technology gets, I'm giving you some away, but you can see it gets taken over. Something that couldn't have happened before all this technology was ubiquitous and everywhere.
I mean, look, the real lesson of the movie is get a landline.
Just got rid of
Just
mine.
get a landline.
I literally just got rid of mine. But this clip really, that's what actually put the fear into me. Has anyone had I don't know, one of your emails hacked into or anything hacked? Anybody? I mean, I have, and it's a nightmare. You know, because all of a sudden you don't have control over something with your name on it, right? And they can send messages out to whomever, and they can look through all of your, you know, anything.
That's the worst part is calling everybody and apologizing.
Yeah.
Or saying, if you got that for me, that's not for
Right.
me. Or
Right.
I have a company, like, please don't transfer that money. Like, that's a big one.
Right,
No,
yeah.
that's not actually me. Yeah.
How much is that, do you think, playing into not just the fears, but the possibilities of messing with politics and policy? Like really getting in there and messing with somebody who has the power to change all of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, listen, absolutely. And again, the problem is the better you do, the less people you talk to, right? Whether you run a company, you run a state, a country, whatever, you rely on other people to let you know what is fact, you know, and then you can decide based on the information given, but it's only what people give to you, you know, and so, you know, I don't know where my internet's plugged in my house that goes to the actual place, so I actually do. But that's just me because I'm a geek. But I mean, but you know, most people don't, and so there's a lot of ways to get involved and to infiltrate somebody's system and all these kinds of things that are super simple. I did this thing. I'm working on a documentary on reporters in conflict zones. So I had to do this hostile environment training. I'm sure you've had to do it, which was wild. And the largest part that was a surprise was the digital stuff. And when
We
we
didn't even have that. When I did it, we didn't have it. It was 2008.
digital health in turning your phone on and off and all the things you're supposed to do to get simple bugs out of the way. When we went in from Poland to the Ukraine, we had to keep our phones off in certain areas because they target certain SIM cards if they know it's American or British and all of these kinds of things. So yeah, I mean, they're massive entry points. You know, they're massive. It's wild to me that the president has a phone that can do whatever they want. Yeah. Because someone's going to get it. Yeah. I mean, he seems to be fine at doing his own messaging, but so I don't know if anybody would believe when truth is stranger than fiction. I don't know if someone else can hack him in a way that's going to bother anybody.
So speaking of that, because there's a major hack here, how close do you think we are, just from some of the conversations that you've had with politicians over the years, and how close are we to this scenario where we actually really don't know what the truth is? Because with AI and with the possibility of hacking, you could say something ostensibly and then say, that wasn't me, that was AI, or somebody, we've seen it 1,000 times where politicians go, that wasn't someone hacked my account, and then it turns out it wasn't hacked. Right. But it's already happened.
Look, here's the problem, and nobody here will be surprised to know that most people in Congress are old, and you can't reset their VCRs. That's a joke, by the way. But you know what I mean? Like their clocks on their stove blink 12 probably, much less figuring out how to deal with their own social media and these things. So it's not like they don't understand it. The biggest thing I learned from talking to everybody and elected officials is, I mean, you see it, how embarrassing some of these hearings are if you watch any of this stuff. They don't understand it. They don't understand the technology. So they're expected to pass legislation to protect us around something that they don't understand. And the only people they're talking to are titans of industry, whose best interest it is to make sure the technology is there, or their legislation is there to let their technology evolve as fast as it can. And so that's where it gets scary, because social media was not prepared for. Right, the legislation for social media was very far behind.
We still don't have it.
We don't have it, right. Australia's ahead of us. Europe's ahead of us in terms of AI. And so now, we're not good. People don't like it when you take something away from them. They don't like it when you put a regulation on something they used to be able to have. And so it's very hard to put that genie back in the bottle. And so I actually think that is the scariest part. If you can't come up with a standard because no one can come up with an agreed upon definition of what the definition of is, to quote next elected official.
Did anyone get that reference? What the gentleman here is nodding. He knows everything.
Yeah.
So am I. Welcome to the club.
So President Clinton said it at his deposition when he
said it depends on what the definition of
is.
And most journalists can't get that out of their head.
Yeah, it's great. But you know what I mean? So if you can't agree on that, you're not going to agree on what the safety standard for screen time is for a 14-year-old, or what the curtails on AI should be that doesn't allow something to go viral by itself, or what basic digital health things are. So I think that's where we're most in trouble.
Yeah, Congress is literally not even talking about it. Like there are so many other things going on that has kind of just been able to sit there and
there's no standard.
There is.
And what's
standard.
crazy is, and we did do this to ourselves. I'm not saying this from my personal beliefs, but I'm telling you a fact that happened. When we started ASP, there was a lot of talk about fact checking on Twitter and on Facebook, and we would put out an ad. The way we originally always did our things would be a Republican and a Democrat. And we would have them define the same thing. What is NAFTA? What is DACA? And some people would define DACA very literally, and some people like Dan Crenshaw would say DACA is an excuse to give a parent, use a child as a token for a parent to have entry to the country, right? And I thought it was good to make sure that you knew how that person defined that, right? So I would cut it two ways for a social media ad. One starting with the Democrat and one starting with the Republican. Most of the time it would get rejected as a political speech at first, even though it wasn't political, it was just a definition. I would recut it or I would appeal, and I could always get the Democrat through. And I oftentimes could not get the Republican through.
Really?
Right. So how did they decide to deal with that issue? Take away fact-checking. Right, so now there's no fact-checking on Facebook. There's no fact-checking on Twitter. The idea was...
Community notes, I think, is the way that they...
Now we should say, because it could be wrong, we just won't do it. You know, that's like saying that the guns that the cops use for laser to gauge your speeding might be off. So just try not to go too fast. You know what I mean? Like it's just that's the problem. You know, that's the problem. Yeah.
And the captains of industry in tech have said we need, I mean, I remember Mark Zuckerberg saying, yes, we do need regulation, sort of like let us regulate ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is some of the result of it. All right, we do have time for questions. So if anybody has a question about anything, whether it's how the film was made, or political issues, or whatever you want to ask,
Life
please.
in LA.
Life in LA, life on the carpet. I don't know anything about it, but he does. Anything you'd like to ask us? Because I'll go to another clip if not, or if you're formulating your question. Anybody? Scared. I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. See? Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about it? I do not know him. I do not. But I do read, right? I do read about the things that are happening over at CBS, at 60 Minutes, and I'm concerned. I don't know what kind of influence there is going to be, and that's with any company. We've been bought, I don't know how many times. We've been bought, since I've been there 2 or 3 times. It was Time Warner, then AT&T came in. Right now, Warner Brothers, so this is the 3rd iteration since I've been there. And you always wonder if there's going to be interference in journalism, always. Doesn't matter who buys you, it's the first thing any journalist is gonna think. Are we going to be affected by this? Are we going to be told what to say and what not to say? So that is always at the back of my mind for any owner. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah. Yes. I've never been given a line. No, I'm not. You mean? Oh, personally. Absolutely. I absolutely. Now, let me preface this. I absolutely have a line that I know that I cannot live with, that I cannot live with myself. Just you know, but
I'm not a politician, and I'm an actor.
But he plays one. He plays one on TV.
I appreciate the believability from that clip, but I am an actor.
I do have a line that I absolutely will not cross. Now, I will say this. I am in a privileged position to have that line in some ways because I can afford my life. So there is this thing that we do where you start thinking about, do you have kids in school? Can you make sure that they're safe? Can you make sure? Right. Those are all calculations for anyone in any job. We have the same calculations, right? And so when you say to someone, you have to choose, 60 Minutes is a perfect example. Back in the day when there was the smoking, the big smoking story, right? Where they what we call spiked the story as Mike Wallace is trying to, do this whole thing on, hey, cigarettes are bad for you, which we all now know. But, Philip Morris was involved and it was a big, huge thing. And the question was, should Mike Wallace quit because of it, right? Should they walk away and say, I don't want to be a part of this organization anymore because you guys are spiking a story and I don't believe in it. And eventually he decided that he'd be more, he'd be better for the country or better for journalism if he stayed in and worked from the inside out. It's a choice.
And I would say that, to be fair, I've talked to elected officials that I might not agree with, but represent a really fair set of ideals in what they're trying to do, and they'll stay on that wall for the same reason. Yeah. They'll say, yeah, you could say I should just quit, but I'm one of the same voices in the room, and so, I can't affect things if I'm not here. But then it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? It's not one decision, and that's the other thing I would say in all of our worlds.
Slippery slope.
It's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah. But I'm glad you asked it because I've thought of that a lot, and not just now, but over the years. And I was in local news first. And I had some issues with some places, and I left because I was like, I'm not doing this. This is just not, it's not for me, and I can't live with it. And I moved to Spain, but anyway, long story for a little while. But yes, I do have a line, and you know, everybody has their life and their idea of what journalism is and how they want to portray it or take part in it. And I have a line. And
So we got
it's clear.
mics to, you guys.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for coming here. I had a question for. Thank you. I had a question for each of you, Ms. Sidner. I just had a question about, I guess, as time goes on, I guess, at least personally, I've been like increasingly concerned about, I guess, media conglomerates kind of swallowing up, I guess, the different channels of information, which I think definitely like affects viewpoint diversity. So I guess like as a reporter, like have you felt that viewpoint diversity kind of being shrunk? Or I guess like what do you think there's like an ostensible solution? And I don't know if I should ask my second question first or let you respond first. Yeah.
Let me respond to that. There's always a concern when there's smaller and smaller numbers of people, whether it be newspapers, journalists in general. I'm always concerned. I hate to see journalists lose their jobs, and there has been a huge number of journalists that no longer work in the business. I think the last numbers I saw, it's huge. It's 40 to 60% of the journalists that were working over the past, I don't know, 10 years or so have lost their jobs. And the place that I worry about it the absolute most, actually, is in local news, and particularly local newspapers. Because when I was coming up, in my old age, when I was coming up, the local newspapers went to every school board meeting, they went to every city council meeting, they went to everywhere the mayor went, they followed every single one of the local politicians. They looked at policy, and then linked it to here's what's happening in your neighborhood. And a lot of the local television stations, because they're people from all over the place, often the local newspaper folks, you know, or know the area really, really well, we fed off them. Like, they will tell you, they used to hate us, right? Because we'd follow up their stories in our own ways. And I'm concerned that local newspapers in particular, and whether it be online or not, that is shrinking, and there are fewer people watching what government is doing, which is one of our biggest jobs. Yeah.
My second question was to you, sure. Mr. Kassen. I guess in terms of like movies with like a political message, I guess the Oscars was last weekend, and one battle after another, won Best Picture. And I guess one of my questions, I guess, was with a movie that's sort of, at least in my opinion, like pushing a viewpoint of like leftist politics. Do you think that like a movie like that is like, I guess, like seemingly like kind of anti-industry, like becoming this like industry darling, like do you think that takes away from its message or what it's trying to do? I know that's not entirely related to what we've talked about, but.
Well, I'm not totally sure I understand your question, meaning like that because that movie was successful, it takes away from its message of being a renegade?
Or I guess like when you accept these awards at this like on a stage as big as the Oscars, and like you don't make a message when you're given that opportunity, do you get what I'm saying?
It's so weird. I just did an interview with Politico. They asked me a similar question. Listen, your life and your brand is yours. And you don't owe it to anybody to use the moment that you get accolades for your work that you've worked for your whole life towards anything. It's yours. At the same right, if you want to, you can. And it's fair that 45 seconds that you're going to be up there out of a 3.5-hour broadcast, maybe it's longer, who knows, you know, will live on most likely more than the broadcast. And so I don't, you know, and I personally feel this, like the amount of shit I've gotten because from people who agree with me because I didn't say something in the way they would have liked me to. We're so good, and you want to know who the really to blame is? It's us. We got what we deserved in terms of, not deserved, we got what we've earned in terms of how we take each other down by dividing ourselves up in these little ways. And I think it's really not, I think what's not healthy is criticizing people for using their voice earnestly in whichever way they want, you know, and because we don't like the way it happens, you know, the way we would, I don't think that's. I want to say one other thing about what you said about the conglomeratization. Yeah. Long before my time, when Paramount was making movies, they both made movies, they distributed the movie, and then they also owned the movie houses. And there became a ruling that stopped them from doing that. It wasn't a law, but it was a ruling, right?
Supreme Court.
Supreme Court. But it wasn't. But it's not a law. So. But the interpretation has changed. The rules have changed. And once Netflix became a distributor and a maker of content that wasn't a theater, this gets into technology, right? And so the technology now allowed for them to get rid of that ruling. Now you do have a problem from the corporatization and the conglomeratization of America, the conglomeratization of the entertainment business, because, and I think about this a lot, and a lot of my peers and I think about this a lot, we make this stuff, and you know, back in the day, there'd be 30 movies at Sundance, and 80% would be sold by the time you'd leave, or 60%, and the rest would go in the next couple of months. Now 3 go. And it's not that nobody wants those films. You go on Rotten Tomatoes, I won't call out any of my friends, but I have friends who made movies for $3 million with huge movie stars in it, and it got made for $2.5 million. And that audience still exists, but it doesn't go within the 4 or 5 people buying the movies' corporate plans. Or back to the original argument, the people are trying to keep up with those people. So the problem with them controlling all parts of that train, all parts of that process, hurts the consumer. The consumer still wants them. The people still want to make them. But somehow the buyers, it doesn't fit into their agenda. And that has to be addressed. Sorry. Yeah.
Gentlemen, yes.
Thanks so much. Just rewatched one of my favorite political thrillers of all time, but I knew the ending going in, which is All the President's Men, which is a masterpiece. So it's just a question about film and about journalism. Watching that movie now, it feels like it's as fantastical as The Lord of the Rings in terms of the world that it represents. And so I'd love to hear from both of you about, do you think it's even possible? I think this is apropos of your discussion of post-truth. Do you think it's even possible for good, hard journalism to take down a president or a serious elected or substantial elected official anymore, or has that world gone away? Is All the President's Men more fantasy than reality anymore?
Well, sorry. Go ahead. First, I'll say All the President's Men was like, talk about something that could have been seen as too soon, but you were watching a movie about something that was happening in real time, right? So All the President's Men is, almost a documentary, incredibly well crafted, right? So you're learning information. You're delineating information, dramatizing information that you've just learned. So in terms of the movie, the movie's talking about something that had happened. So it wasn't about, I think, the movie per se. The other thing I'll say is no technology, right? So like that movie could have been like, now that movie it'd be a short, it'd be 8 minutes. Because between the technology and who gives a shit, And I think what I would say is, my opinion, and you tell me from a journalist standpoint, do the people care? Because we now see the discovery of that film and the denouement when you find out, what it all is. We get that in the beginning now. Absolutely. They're not hiding it. Yeah. I know a couple things, you probably do too, that aren't printable, that, maybe they'll come out, maybe they won't, that might upset people. But for the most part, it's out in the open.
I think the answer is it depends on who the president is. How good they are at social media, how good they are at saying and doing things that are upsetting to people, or how good they are at tap dancing. I think it depends, because we have seen some stories that have knocked politicians like George Santos off their stoop, right? And that ended.
But don't you think, sorry, that's also because other people in the club didn't like him?
I think partly, but I think the amount of lying and the kind of lying, people just
couldn't take it.
It just was way over. But yes, part of it is the party in New York was like, no, we can't be right. We can't be a part of this. And then on the Democratic side, Menendez. So I think it's still possible. I think it's not as probable. now. Also because our attention spans are like a gnat's, right? And mine too, like I am not judging. Mine is the same. Like I have to force myself to sit down and read books, right? Just to, actual books, not on a iPad. Like I like books. I like the smell of the papers. I like the crinkling. I like dog earing it. I like doing all those things. I know it makes me 1,000 years old, but I still write and, write in them and be like, oh my God, amazing writing. But it's a chore just to get me to sit. Once I'm in it, I'm fine. But it's hard for me to get my head in a book. And so our attention spans are so short that something crazy happens, and guess what? 2 seconds later, not even, a nanosecond later, something else crazy happens. And you're like, oh my God, what just happened? I've heard people say it to me a million times. There's so many things, I just turn it off. Stop watching the news.
Which is by design.
Yeah.
From the blood.
Yeah. I mean, there is a plan to flood the zone, right? With as much stuff as you possibly can so that you can't pay attention to everything. You gotta live your life, right? And so I think it's possible, but harder and not that movie.
Well, I've probably seen that movie 50 times. Easy.
Yeah, and it's so good. But yeah,
People not caring as much
Yeah.
and flooding the zone with shit
Yeah.
that you can't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
That's how I'm biased because I teach about this. That's how we define it.
yeah. I mean, yes, that's part of it. What's real and what isn't.
Oh, thank you.
Actors think that directors blow smoke up their asses, and I'm wondering how you, as director and the actor, how do you control blowing smoke up your own?
Oh, I appreciate that. I did the opposite. I just gave myself shit every day. Well, look, I mean, I would say as a director who's done both, this was tough, I will say. But again, I had a good team. I had some people around me who do the opposite. They don't blow smoke, and so if they tell me, I listen to. But also, I was very, very, very prepared, and I knew what I wanted to do. And I spent a lot of time, without getting into geeky stuff of movie making, but we rented a loft, and I went pretending like I was going to buy a $14 million apartment, me personally, as opposed to using a location. And we shot in Montreal and Los Angeles, and the apartment is in LA. It's beautiful. You'll see when you stay for the whole movie. But I knew that no one was going to buy a place in winter in Montreal. So I was like, well, this might not be right for me. I'm not quite ready for this, but if it's empty, would you like to rent it for a period of time? And so I took 2 weeks blocking out the film, shooting on a handy cam, on my phone, on all these different things, trying different things out. So I shot like 11 to 22 pages at a time. So I kind of had these long balance shots. A lot of times when you make small movies, you shoot all what they call the meat, all the big scenes, and then if you have time, you go back and do the cool creative stuff. I did the opposite. I did these long things, and then I knew what I wanted to do, and I could learn from the movie, and then go back and punch in and get my pieces. So it was just being really prepared. Really, is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I want to ask a question both for you. So I'm Min from Hong Kong, studying at Harvard Kennedy School. So if you're advising me, like the future political leaders, what's the single biggest mistake they make when trying to communicate the truth in a media-driven world?
That's an amazing question.
Answer that one.
I guess you're going to see it in this film. It's turning into a bot. It's turning into a caricature of yourself. It's talking points to the point where you're not even answering the question. You're not even actually listening to the question. I can't tell you how many times I have asked a question and the answer it has literally nothing to do with the question. And it's a question that I know the public would like an answer to. Now, maybe it's too hard, and you'll see people tap dancing and not giving the direct answer, but sometimes the answer, it's like 2 different planets. And so when a reporter has to say, I'm just curious, did you hear the question that I just asked you? Right? I mean, when you turn into a person that cannot be at all honest when you're answering a question, you've lost the plot. You are sort of entering this realm where you're just trying to stay in office and you really don't care what the public is asking and you don't care how you answer it. You just care that someone is funding you and that you're going to make it in that same position so that you have power. To me, that I feel like you lose the plot if you can't listen and engage on a real level. That doesn't mean you win all the time, and that's the issue, right? Because sometimes you're going to say something really raw, and people are either going to love you or they're going to hate you, and it's probably both.
I think people crave authenticity, you know, and that's kind of the part of the point of the fun of the film, which is you watch people trying to give people what they want, and what they want is real, because they have real problems. And I think that, you know, people are too big on messaging and not enough on real communication, and that's maybe one of the underlying.
And people, I think, we do not give enough credit to people. They're smart, they're living their lives, they're trying to figure things out themselves, and they also understand that nothing's simple, like really, really, really simple and easy. When there are hard issues that are happening, you might not have all the answers, and it's okay to say, listen, I'm working on this right now, right? But I'm hoping that this works, and this is my idea, and this is what I hope works. And if other people don't like it, you can't then flip and go, well, for this audience, I will say, I mean, we've seen that too, where someone will go into a room and they'll say one thing, and then they'll go into another room to please people over here and say, well, I'm working on something else, right? So it's the authenticity, but it's really actually answering questions and being honest and truthful about what it is you actually believe and what it is you're actually going to do. More question? Question?
Thank you.
Very good.
So as a reporter, when you do get a response to a question that has nothing to do with your question, do you ask the question again? And if you still don't get an answer, why do you broadcast that interaction at all?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question. Usually what I do now is live. So, and I think my biggest frustration with live TV is I like to sit down with someone and try to understand them, because I know they're going through it too. They're trying to figure it out as well. And we get 4 to 5 minutes. So if I keep harping on the one question, I usually will ask it twice. If it's significant enough, I'll say, hold on a second. So I heard what you said, but you didn't answer the question. So what do you think about this again? But when you go a third and fourth, and again, depending on what it is, because sometimes you get an answer. If they get frustrated enough with you, sometimes you get an answer. But then I have to move on to other subjects. There's so many things going on, right? I need to ask you about a couple of other things that are important to the public.
But also, to be fair to you guys, just to be fair, like, what if the executive producer or Sara said, you can't air it because they didn't answer it? So now they're censoring for you the information. Like, actually, I would say the onus is on you, the audience member, to say, wow, they didn't answer that, and make your decision. You know, like, because them not answering says something.
I'm curious, what do you think when you see someone not answer a question more than one time?
It's very frustrating as a listener.
What do you think of the person not answering, though? What's in your head when you hear them tap dancing and not answering the question?
I'm thinking, oh, they're using this as another opportunity to just, spout whatever they plan to, to broadcast, to advertise whatever it is that they wanted to be heard, and it's very frustrating as a listener. So when a live program, I can see the problem, but when it's not live and they have some time, I'm always surprised.
That you see it. So there's also a reason for that. You just told me that you get frustrated because you see that they're just trying to stick with their talking points. Then you can decide whether you want to put that person back in office. If they can't answer the question and they won't answer a question that you care about, it's a signal to you that whatever the answer is, they don't think you're going to like it, right? That usually is what it is. They don't want to say the thing that's hard.
That's true, but they still get their free advertising time.
It is absolutely true.
That's the bargain.
Yeah.
Look, if you stay for the movie, please enjoy it. If you don't, come see it when it comes out. If you choose to go online and review it, one of the places, that's great. There is an embargo until April 9th. I'm supposed to tell you that.
But please stay, watch this movie, like and subscribe, tell everybody. It's going to be a big hit, and vote.
We just spent time beating up on social media. And now
I
I'm telling
know.
you to like and subscribe.
And
this is the bargain.
These were robust questions. Keep
thank you
them
all.
coming. Watch Sara in the morning. What time are you getting up tomorrow morning?
4.
4? You could get up earlier.
30.
You could work harder. Thank you guys for coming tonight. This is a really big deal. Thank you.